This man you're watching in this video was known as the Monster of Cajamarca. He committed a terrible crime for which he never showed any remorse. As you can see in this picture, even while in custody, he could not help but smile and behave arrogantly. If you want to know how this man got his nickname, don't miss a second of this video. Hello, welcome to the Crime Documentary Files channel. The case I bring to you today happened in Peru. Mirly Yahaira Urcia Flores was born on April 21, 1991, in the city of Chiclayo in northern Peru. She was the daughter of Victor Urcia Grados, but we couldn't find information in the sources consulted about her mother. Mirly was very close to her father. According to Victor, she used to accompany him on work trips to different areas of the country from a very young age. Mirly had several siblings, but only the name of the eldest, Medali Urcia Flores, is known from reports. The sisters had a very close relationship. In fact, Medali claimed that she had practically raised Mirly, who was several years younger than her. At some point during her youth, Mirly had a relationship with an unidentified man who turned out to be violent and abusive, and who became the father of her children. When she was just 18 years old, Mirly welcomed her firstborn. Over the next 4 years, she had 2 more children. Fortunately, after having her children, she was able to leave behind the abusive situation she was in and build a life as a single mother. Mirly's family said she was a person who shone with her own light and was the most cheerful of her siblings. She was a fun-loving young woman despite the hardships she faced throughout her life. She was a merchant, selling agricultural equipment such as cattle hoops. Like her father, she traveled frequently for business purposes. While Mirly traveled for work or took time off, Medali helped by taking care of her children, with whom she had a very caring relationship. During one of her many visits to the city of Cajamarca, Mirly met Alex Eva Quezada Tello, a local taxi driver 6 years younger than her. At first, they started a friendship, but it soon became a romantic relationship. Alex and Mirly began dating, and gradually the relationship became more formal. At first, the man seemed to be decent and vowed to adore her. She was very much in love. Mirly introduced him to her family, but according to Medali, they were never convinced of Alex's bona fides. To Mirly's relatives, the man's behavior seemed very strange, as if he were 2 different people. They found his smile disturbing. Mirly's children, on the other hand, didn't like their mother's new partner either. Mirly wanted to build a future with him and even enrolled her children in a school in Cajamarca. However, she never formalized living with Alex. Despite his constant insistence on living together, Mirly had begun to realize his true personality. Alex was an incredibly jealous, violent, and toxic man. According to Mirly's children, he would give their mother dirty looks, call her names, and even hit her, even when the children were present. But Mirly, as often happens with abuse victims, claimed to be in love with him. She even withheld information about his violent side from her family members, who had become concerned for her well-being. So, the relationship continued, and the violence got worse and worse. Alex would not let her go anywhere. He followed her even when she went to visit her father. He accused her of being promiscuous and unfaithful, and he beat her almost daily during this period of her life. Mirly distanced herself from her loved ones and always thought someone was following her. On one occasion, during a violent fit of jealousy, Alex locked Mirly in a room and began assaulting her with a sharp object as if he intended to take her life. According to Medali, this occurred at Alex's home, with his mother present. While Mirly screamed for help and begged for her life, his mother did nothing to assist her. Eventually, Mirly ended the relationship. However, Alex refused to let her go and began to harass and pursue her, insisting she come back to him. Mirly made repeated complaints against her ex-partner for assault, but the authorities never provided her with an adequate response. Her sister claimed that a police officer even blamed Merely on one occasion for being in an abusive relationship. It seems that all of Merely's complaints were filed by the local police without ever resolving the matter. The authorities responded to Merely's report only once, in October 2022, by implementing a restraining order and providing her with a panic button as protective measures. Police personnel in the area were also instructed to conduct weekly checks on the victim's home. However, Merely's relatives confirmed that these measures were never followed through, and the authorities didn't even inform her when the restraining order expired. The last of Merely's complaints occurred in May 2023, due to a summons for Alex to appear before authorities on May 23rd. In the meantime, Merely was struggling to rebuild her life after nearly 2 years in a tumultuous relationship with Alex. On the evening of May 21st, she went out with some friends to a nightclub called Barra VIP. She was having a good time when suddenly, in the early hours of the 22nd, Alex showed up. He had been partying before going to the place where he knew his ex-partner would be. Alex forced Merely to leave the establishment, claiming that he wanted to talk about the complaint against him since he was scheduled to appear before a judge in a few hours. While they argued, they went out onto the street, and the altercation quickly turned violent. Alex then forcibly escorted her into a black van waiting outside. The vehicle drove until it reached the 17th block of Alfonso Ugarte Avenue in Cajamarca, where Alex forcefully removed Merely from the van. He began to beat her in the middle of the street while she tried to defend herself and screamed for help. This violent act was witnessed by neighbors in the area. A woman, who saw the whole scene from her window, began to record with her cell phone while shouting for someone to help the victim. But no one intervened, and Alex continued to attack his ex-partner even after she was unconscious and showed no resistance. Not satisfied with the beating, Alex reached for a bottle, smashed it on the ground, and used it as a weapon to cause serious injuries to Merely's face and neck. He then walked away, found a large stone, and threw it repeatedly at her head. Finally, after committing this despicable attack, he fled the scene. Just as no one came forward to prevent the horrific attack, no one stopped Alex from leaving the scene. The violent crime was recorded, and the commotion generated by Merely's screams finally alerted the police. The officers arrived on the scene a few minutes later to try to help Merely. Surprisingly, she was still breathing. She was rushed to the Hospital Regional Docente of Cajamarca, but unfortunately succumbed to her injuries. According to the doctor who treated her, Merely suffered multiple bruises from the physical assault, cut wounds to the neck, and an open frontal fracture. Amid the tragedy, the authorities were at least able to track down Alex quickly, capturing him in the 3rd block of Villa Tiginza. He initially resisted arrest and attempted to run away, but officials were able to detain him. When he was caught, he admitted to killing Merely and was subsequently prosecuted for femicide. He claimed that his motivation for committing such a crime was that if Merely was not his, she would not belong to anyone else. Alex, known as the Monster of Cajamarca for the ferocity with which he killed his ex-partner, was taken to the 15 de Septiembre police station near the historic center of the city. As soon as the investigations began, it was discovered that Alex, also known as Poti, was the leader of a dangerous criminal gang. He had a record of more than 20 complaints, several for domestic violence, including those made by Merely. Additionally, Alex had been in prison between 2016 and 2019, in the Guacari Penal Center for aggravated robbery as part of a criminal gang. After receiving the tragic news of Merle's death, her relatives requested the quick intervention of representatives from the Ministry of Women. They asked for help to ensure the maximum sentence of life imprisonment for Alex, as well as psychological support for Merle's 3 children who had been left orphaned and homeless. Her loved ones were joined by several women's rights activists who held a demonstration to demand justice outside the police station where Alex was being held. Merle's funeral, held on the afternoon of May 24th, marked the passing of a woman who was only 32 years old. Her remains were transferred from her home in La Victoria district to Patapo town, where the ceremony was held. The Urtia family decided to bury Merle in that town instead of her hometown of Chiclayo because the cost of the niches was much lower in Patapo. They were charged an average of 8,000 sols in Chiclayo, a little more than $2,000, while the niche in which they finally buried her had a value of 500 sols, which was a little more than $130 at the exchange rate at that time. The victims' relatives complained to the authorities since they didn't receive any economic support to bury Merle in her hometown, to keep her close to them. The neighbors expressed their solidarity with the family and took up a collection to cover the burial expenses. Meanwhile, the investigation continued and was in the hands of the Provincial Family Prosecutor's Office, which specialized in crimes of violence against women and members of the family group of Cajamarca. The investigation was led by Provincial Prosecutor Lilian Susan Rueda Curimanea. On May 26th, a hearing was held where the prosecutor requested that the accused be remanded in custody while the investigation continued. The prosecutor presented several pieces of evidence, including a video recorded by a neighbor, several witness statements, and the necropsy report. The 4th Preparatory Investigation Court agreed with the prosecutor, accepting the argument that Alex had brutally attacked Merle and caused her death, so they ordered 9 months of pre-trial detention. The defendant showed no remorse at any time. On the contrary, he smiled as he listened to the charges against him while being held at the station. After the hearing, Magistrate Richard Cabrera Vila announced that Alex would be prosecuted for the crime of aggravated femicide, for which he could face a life sentence. Alex was taken to the Cajamarca prison. On the morning of May 28th, he was attacked by other inmates, who beat him violently as punishment for being a woman aggressor. According to reports, the defendant sustained multiple wounds in different parts of his body. Agents of the National Penitentiary Institute, known by the acronym INPE, transferred him to the infirmary for treatment of his injuries. Months later, on August 2, 2023, an expert hearing was held. The criminal's defense claimed that he suffered from mental disorders and requested a psychiatric evaluation, which could potentially reduce the sentence. Additionally, another video from the crime scene, discovered during the investigation, was revealed. It was captured by a city security camera in Cajamarca. The video shows that Alex received help from others to commit the attack on his ex-partner. The footage shows the driver of a black van with tinted windows, in which Alex transported Merle, helping her out of the vehicle when they arrived at the location where she was assaulted. The video then shows Alex positioning himself on top of the woman and beginning his brutal attack. After learning of this new evidence, Merle's family urged the authorities to investigate possible accomplices. The victim's sister stated that the attack was planned and that Alex knew he would kill Merle in the early morning of May 22nd. Initially, there were reports of 2 possible accomplices, but this was later narrowed down to one man named Gilmer Eduardo Pajares Noriega, who was part of the same gang as Alex. The prosecutor's office requested that the suspect be remanded in custody due to his high flight risk. In early November of the same year, it was reported that Gilmer was on the run after the Preparatory Investigation Court issued a request for a 5-month preventive detention for the alleged crime of being a primary accomplice in Murley's femicide. According to the investigation, he had participated in the crime by driving the vehicle that transported Murley and Alex, fully aware of Alex's plans. He also helped Alex get the victim out of the van so that the crime could be carried out. Sandra Otilia Rabanal Rodriguez, the deputy prosecutor of the Provincial Prosecutor's Office specializing in crimes of violence against women, was present during the remand hearing. She stated that the femicide might not have occurred or could have been prevented if Gilmer had not actively participated. His involvement in the crime was intentional and the consequences were clear. It was also revealed that Gilmer was part of the group that went to the Baravip nightclub with Alex, and he provided Alex with a weapon used to force Murley to leave the nightclub and get into the van. His role in driving the vehicle to the crime scene was crucial in enabling Alex to carry out his plan. After Gilmer's fugitive status was announced, Murley's sister reported receiving threats. She said she could no longer visit Cajamarca frequently because of threats to kill her. The trial against Alex proceeded quickly due to the overwhelming evidence and his confession. The public prosecutor's office supported the femicide case and requested life imprisonment for the 2 accused. According to Cristiana Araujo Morales, president of the Board of Senior Prosecutors of the Cajamarca Prosecutorial District, the judiciary was expected to announce its decision in the early months of 2024. In January 2024, it was announced that Daniel Olguin Moranevel Vázquez Sanchez and José Francisco León Izquierdo, judges of the Supra-Provincial Collegiate Criminal Court, had unanimously decided to sentence Alex Eva Quezada Tello, 26, to life imprisonment. The sentence's reading was held behind closed doors, and Alex attended virtually by video call, as he had for all previous hearings since the beginning of his pre-trial detention. It was also decided by the majority that Gilmer Eduardo Pajares Noriega would receive the same sentence. As he was still a fugitive, nationwide arrest warrants were issued. By mid-March 2024, his whereabouts were still unknown. Additionally, both were ordered to pay 300,000 soles, approximately $81,000, as civil reparation to Murley's children. According to the prosecutor, the videos captured by the neighbor and the Cajamarca security camera were vital in securing the sentence. It should be noted that Juan Miguel Tapia Silva and Alejandro Eduardo Luján Garcia, the defense attorneys for the 2 convicts, still have the option to appeal the case to a higher court. However, there was no information on this matter at the end of our investigation. The tragic death of Myrly Urcia Flores is one of hundreds of cases of women who are victims of gender violence in Peru every year. According to the Ministry of Women and Vulnerable Populations, 165 women died due to femicide in Peru in 2023, a significant increase from the 130 cases reported in 2022. The National Programme for the Prevention and Eradication of Violence Against Women and Members of the Family Group reported that in 56% of the femicides in the country, the victim had a partner relationship with her aggressor. Of this number, 16% of the crimes were committed by the victim's ex-partners. What happened to Murley and the other women who died due to gender-based violence highlights the urgent need to reinforce prevention and protection measures. While the Urtia family saw justice done, it's hard not to wonder if the outcome could have been different if she had received timely and adequate attention when she first approached the authorities to report her aggressor. That's all for today's story. Leave your comments below. What do you think about this tragic event? Before you go, please like this video, and if you find this content interesting, subscribe. Don't forget to activate the notification bell to stay updated.